Alright, late night video, me and the frogs. And I think I've just figured out that this fellow's name is Professor Anton. And I'm in one of these awkward moments online where I don't know if I should talk about Professor Anton in the third person or directly. Now, he has responded to me in comments sometimes, but I don't really feel that there's a conversational nature. I feel that Professor Anton is providing a series of lectures, which is fine, um, but uh, but it affects how I would respond. Whether I simply will comment, realizing that I am not a participant in his conversation, or something else. So I think the trend that I've noticed watching a a subset, a slice of Professor Anton's videos is that while he has a sort of modernistic approach, postmodernistic, or I don't know. Anyway, he has an up-to-date approach in a lot of ways, but he wants to revive and reestablish a lot of the metaphysics. I mean, it's ontology, it's teleology. Now, to me, those are both in similar categories. I mean, for example, or not for example, but to start with teleology, the idea that everything has a purpose. The problem with teleology, it was bullshit originally, um, is the idea was that these objects actually had that purpose, this thing, you know, a hammer could be used as a weapon or as a hammer. You had to decide which was the real purpose. Purpose is more arbitrary than that. We put purpose in things. Things don't actually have purposes. They have behavior we can put to a purpose. Okay. You can put it, if you create it to be put to that purpose or be ingenious afterwards, the purpose is an arbitrary human thing. So putting a metaphysical reality to that teleology is just bullshit. On the other hand, there is such a thing as purpose. As I said, we put purpose in things. We get things done by realizing, hey, with the hammer I can, for that matter, oh, hey, with the rock I can hammer the nail as well. It's important for us to track purpose. So we have software that we run to think about purposes and add purposes up and get goals, and with all the purposes of everything, satisfy the goals. So it's useful as a cognitive program that we have that we can run. But it's not fundamental. Same thing on ontology. Yeah, it's important to ask, what do I mean by I, or what are the things in my space? But since we don't have access to the real things, and those things are going to be ideas, it suddenly becomes a little bit more arbitrary, less fundamental. There's no metaphysical reality to it, but it's still good to do an ontological or teleological analysis of something, realizing that we've put the meanings in the words from our experiences, and we have put the purposes into things from our experiences. I don't really want to back out of hinting even that it's a postmodern philosophy of his, but I just mean, it does try to be up to date. Quantum mechanics, it allows a certain kind of mysticism. It wants to reawaken the mysticism. Now, I like to have spirituality and everything in philosophy, and but I just like to do it on a realist basis, which does not allow or include metaphysics of any sort. The philosophical kind, the theistic kind, no metaphysics. It makes no sense. You are physical. Oh, but what do you mean by physical? No, it doesn't matter. I'm calling it physical. I'm having experiences and calling them physical. So whatever it is, if we're in a matrix, matrix is physical. Whatever it is, that's what physical is. And then we're going to look into, well, how's it behave? What's it really mean? How's it, is it objects or is it waves? Is it particles, energy? Is it all these things? Is everything transformable? We're going to ask that after we've named it. I think what confuses people is that we have we have pattern recognition machines in our brain, and they're intuitive, and so we collect things in classifications, before we really know the details, because intellectually we'd still have to look at that group. Let's say you had 1,000 cartoon drawings, and you had to sort them into male and female, child and adult. Okay, and they're not real people, and you don't recognize any of them. They're not of real people, but you organize them. Then afterwards, you might look at it and go, "Well, how did I recognize that those were kids?" You know, and there'd be a lot of different ways. The proportion of the head and the eyes. Maybe there was objects in the picture that showed that it was short, and maybe there were toys. And we would be able to categorize all of that uh, instantaneously with this. Well, not instantaneously, but you know what I mean. More or less direct. Just it happens, and it happens rather quickly, really, as we get these perceptions. And then afterwards, we have to go through all the analytical details. Afterwards, we say, well, what's the ontology? Or what's the facts in this case? Or what's the, afterwards, we start to look at. So our brain creates this pattern, and we mistake this pattern recognition thing for some sort of connection to reality. Since I can call something I, which means my pattern recognition machine has identified that there's something it wants to make that models as a continuous object, that somehow there's a meaning there. It already means something, and we can answer that. No, it's from our experiences, because this is evolutionary biology. Just because you started off with that, you know, it's still a product of experiences, of living. Everything has to start with living. That's why we start with epistemology, because epistemology can start with living. Now, unlike teleology and ontology, epistemology can be repaired and not require metaphysics. And the answer is what I just said. You start from perceptions, wherever they come from. If they come from a dream, or they're the scales off the back of a turtle, or they are from a matrix, or it's a world full of objects, or it's a world full of energy, or it's a world full of a quantum n-dimensional matrix, or whatever it is. We have the perceptions, we're identifying them, we're calling, and we say, look, there's consistency among them, What is that? What is that consistency? It's consistency for me over time. It's consistency between me and you over time. What is that consistency? Well, we call that reality. Whatever's producing the reality, that's what we're on the path to discover. So I think there's a mistake made because we have these automatic functions, and we get confused about things that are what I call prior, because we start with them as cognitive creatures, and a priori, which are somehow fundamentally, metaphysically, supposedly there before we even start as living creatures.